How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I wanted to look at the DLC vehicles. So we've got this Aramatsu Bowhead 30 ton. Was Aramatsu awesome in the name they did of that Forester in SnowRunner? I can't remember. The sand capacity is 20 tons. The main reason that factors in is the dump truck is 10 tons. So you can refill the dump truck from this, and you can do it twice. I thought it'd be a little bit more than that. For whatever reason, the truck's called like a 30T, which I assumed was 30 ton. But apparently it can only hold 20. But it's fine, I'm not bothered in and of itself. Yeah, so here's a look at it. I first spawned on Aftermath. Typical, like literally just pulled out the garage and instantly have an AI vehicle up my arse, honking his horn and going mad. As a quick look at the interior, the camera view interior feels like it sits forward quite a lot, but I went through a few other vehicles, the interior view, and it kind of felt similar, to be honest. I wasn't really paying attention where I was driving. Again, this is just kind of like a selection of clips that I was playing around with it tonight, and yeah, I've kind of left in what I thought might sway you either way on whether you get the vehicle. This was me, yeah, so I'm transferring fuel over. You can see like the yellow ring around it, much smaller than an actual sand quarry. But I think it's about 35 metres of radius, like you can, hence how I'm refilling the dump truck. Normally I wouldn't be able to refill it from that area of the map. Since I was on Aftermath, I don't do much of it, but I had to test the glitch tree out and see how well this thing flies. Not too bad. I managed first attempt to stick to the wall. I did notice as well, it's not exclusive to this, but just as I tried to move it then, because I've technically gone beyond 90 degrees, the engine stalled because it sort of counted as if I've rolled over. So I recovered to the recovery area on Aftermath. This is where it brings you to the phosphate plant, and this is like my little shortcut back over to that glitch tree. But obviously I built the bridge. I was kind of like going to build something anyway. There's actually a proper place you can build a bridge just up the river, and I built that first, but then I dismantled it, got all my concrete blocks back, and built this little thing. And yeah, there's the pipe that I dragged over there with a loaf. Just to give, again, a rough idea of like random bits of footage of driving around, driving over things, through swamps, this and that. Again, I had to have a few goes while I was here. I think this is one. I got some pretty good distance, managed to find the map again. Where is it there? The off-bounds map or whatever it is. Managed to completely murder a tree as well on my way down. As random as it is, it gave us a little chance to look underneath. You can see the front of the vehicle has like the V shape on the tracks. The rear has the same, but it's got a metal bar sitting over it, which does raise the question. Like, I think this thing, I think everything really in the game should be able to have a winch. The fact that this has got like a bar on the back with like a tow hook means it really should. Yeah, I landed on a tree upside down, kind of killed that, but it speared through me. And again, was just kind of messing around. I think this was the last time. Well, I edited a few out. I wanted to know, see what happens, see if I could. I never really got out of bounds. I think the closest I got was hitting that the like out of bounds marker. So now I'm on what's it called? Incommunicado. There's the big swamp road that I built the other day as a mission. And this was roughly where I cut across at some points with a cable layer heading to the substation, which is like one of the first cables you lay from there over to the steel beams factory, I believe it was. The loaf drove through here as well. For what it's worth, like as I've driven it around more tonight, I think it's pretty decent. I think it could do with a tad more, I sort of say grip, but it tends to get beached, you know, because like the tracks are quite wide, the metal underneath the vehicle between the tracks seems to get beached a little bit easier than you'd expect. Bearing in mind, if you scaled this down to the size of the loaf, you'd expect, being a smaller vehicle, that it would struggle in more places, or the opposite of that. If you scaled the loaf up, or like at least the front half of the loaf, to the size of this, the loaf's already like an unstoppable beast at its size. If it was scaled up to the size of this, I'd imagine it'd just be more of the same. Whereas, yeah, as you can see there, I'm not entirely sure what got caught on. There could have been like a rock under the water line or whatever. In this game, rocks out of most things seem to catch you out and you get stuck on them more than anything. But again, overall, like, I'm pretty much hitting top speed at this point. Obviously I've got a big chunk of sand with me. at least on this map, Incommunicado, most of the map I can just refill the sand whenever I like. But yeah, you can definitely tell I'm driving along the line that I laid the cable, so you can see like the ridge running through the swamp. Yeah, I mean, it's getting its foot down for the most part, as long as you don't get caught on something awkward. Whether, like, it's a tough one to say if it's worth it. I've certainly, if you haven't got the... there's two scenarios of if it's worth it or not. One is you've got to buy the rebuild expansion pack or whatever with the game, and the second one is once you're in the game, do you buy them or not? I wouldn't recommend the expansion pack just to get your hands on these, because I don't think they're good enough or game changing enough to justify it. That said, on top of the expansion pack, you're going to get I believe it's 4 new maps or something, or 4 new vehicles. I'll have to look at what it gives you again, but there's quite a few things you'll get with the expansion pack as well. So on the other side, I can look at it. I don't necessarily like if games add vehicles as a DLC that are completely OP compared to everything else you can get in the game, because it doesn't really matter with SnowRunner, to be fair. You've got mods and all sorts. Games like Call of Duty were annoying when it did it, because they'd release the entire game and then 2 weeks later they'd release a DLC gun that's just objectively better than everything else. And it kind of ruins the game you've bought unless you now feed more money into it. It's like the sunken cost fallacy kind of thing. You've got to keep sinking more money in to get back to where you were. So in that sense, like, they haven't made these completely OP to where, like, you're missing out if you haven't got them. This was one cool thing. At first it was a bit weird that the kind of cab and everything rotates separate to the tracks. But as you can see there, as a good example, my swamp road, I was able to turn this sideways and just drive along as I'm dumping. It feels like it dumps more consistently than the dump truck. The dump truck feels like once you've tipped it enough to where the sand starts to come out, it near enough dumps the entire load. That's what she said. You can sometimes get away with, like, there's still a little bit left in the dumper, but for the most part, that's pretty much your lot. This, as I said, it's the dump truck's 10 tons of sand it holds. That Aramatsu Bowhead thing is 20 tons, so you've got the equivalent of 2 lots of dump trucks. It feels like a little bit more than that. Not a crazy amount, but probably feels more, somewhere like 2 to 3 times the amount of sand. But I think because, as you can see there, it dumps it more gradually and consistently, it's a lot better to get like a line of sand rather than like just a big fat lump of sand. So while I was at here, I kind of figured, I believe it was Rebel by Choice as well was asking, like, can you just lay roads anywhere? And yeah, you can, and this was just kind of coincidentally worked out pretty nicely. You can see there, by the way, where I'm rolling, you see that little patch of ground it left. You have to go back with a paver just to fill them in, but then once you do, it doesn't look like it really changes much when you go back over it with a paver. But then you take the steamroller back and it flattens it out all fine. And yeah, I edited most of that out because I didn't want the video to be too long, and it was supposed to more be a video of the DLC vehicles, but that gave an example. It actually was pretty rapid to build the road. Definitely helped by the fact that you can go sideways and just sort of run along and tip the sand as you're going. And then yeah, the next vehicle is this Invictus Type A, so basically a Hummer. Similar sort of thoughts with this. It's not amazing by any means, but it's not bad either. When you're driving along, you'll hear the engine revving. I don't dislike that in its own right, because I think SnowRunner to a degree needs more engine sounds going on than it does. This I just think is the wrong note, because of the way the game kind of limits you revs and that, which is a bit like it does in SnowRunner. I think it's just a little bit too much of a high revving sound, but as you can see, once I'm up to speed, it just sits in that high revving sound. It does not, I think it should be a little bit more of a probably lower rev range, deeper growl going to it, but in and of itself I do like the engine noise. It wasn't really bothering me that it's making a noise. A good example for me, because I got the PC recently, I got BeamNG, and I was just messing around on that game, like trying to figure out how to record footage and all sorts, and I got a truck on that game, and when you're driving that, it sounds brilliant by comparison. It's like, you know, really sounds like you're going through the gears in a truck. Yeah, they sort of captured that quite well in BeamNG, and I think SnowRunner and this game certainly aren't up to that level, but they're getting there. This, I brought the Land Rover just to give you an idea. When I was driving the Hummer, that's kind of just an example of how fast it was. This got a little bit of a drift on when I swerved onto the road. I think like the steering grip increased quite sharply, so I nearly flew back off the road. But it was just to go have a run down that road with both vehicles. I don't think you're really missing out much. This isn't even like the brand new Land Rover, strictly speaking, as well. It's the one it gives me in the game. They feel about the same top end. I do think this vehicle feels a little bit nicer in some ways. It sits wider, the suspension's a little bit more, I don't know if interactive's the right word, but it feels like it sort of bounces around more and you can actually climb up the lips of rocks a bit better and all the rest of it. But for the most part, yeah, I don't think you're missing out. It also managed to jump that little gap that my Land Rover got stuck in. So I drove over to the quarry, again, just sort of driving around, finding excuses to get a bit of footage and see how I feel about them, really. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt there. It caught its front end quite easily and flipped over, but I did also not really have much of a run up and sort of semi-dribbled off the edge of the cliff. Thankfully, the goddamn professional nearby, so fire out a winch. And this is one thing, one thing I think they need to improve in the game in general. You can sort of select your winch point, but once you've found like the vehicle you want to winch to, you can't scroll through different winch points like you can in SnowRunner. I've got a pretty good feeling they'll add it sooner rather than later, because I've got a feeling a lot of people will be saying the same thing. But yeah, it kind of limits you at the minute to which winch point you can winch to. This seems to only have two anyway, like one at the front and one at the back. If you pick it up with a crane, it offers you more, but you can see that when I hold the winch button, it just does like one front and one rear. It makes it a little bit awkward to tip over, because in the case of like when I just winch the loaf to it, I'm pulling from the front middle and it's just dragging on its roof. I've got no like leverage on the corners or anything like that, so again, I won't personally hold it against only this vehicle, because I believe that's roughly speaking like what's happening with a lot of vehicles in the game, which yeah, they need to figure out. I did see they've released like a road map for what they're planning with 2025 coming up. There's a free update coming up soon that's going to have a couple more free vehicles, so even if you don't have the DLC or whatever. I think then there's another update going on after that where there's a couple more free vehicles, and yeah, again, if you go on Steam and check out the latest news, that'll probably keep you more up to date. But one of the things it said was quality of life improvements, and I've got a feeling that's the sort of things like refining the winch situation and all that. So I drove up here. This is where like that red cargo container is where I pushed those massive concrete slabs from the other day. Partly on me, to be honest. I swerved a little bit crappy at the last minute and I kind of rolled sideways off the cargo containers. But the point it proved, as I was winching to the different trees, it just kept dragging me along on my roof. There was no way to get a winch point that's going to pull me at like a weird angle that's going to try and roll me over sideways. And obviously this being wider than the Land Rover, if you were to turn a corner and roll, this is quite easily going to land on its roof, and it's going to quite confidently want to stay on its roof. The Land Rover is more square shaped. You've got like a semi-decent chance of, if you had enough momentum to roll on the roof of the Land Rover, you're probably going to have enough momentum to roll at least back over to the side, and then winch into something has more chance of it digging in sideways and flipping back to its wheels. Whereas this, yeah, it's kind of like if you're not on the wheels, you're probably on the roof, and at that point you're probably sending a loaf and ram into it sideways. But other than that, it's probably quicker to recall it or recover it to the garage or whatever. So that area I just went up where I rolled over on that red container and that, I just drove over the rocks, which was the way you're supposed to go around the road to that red container area. But there's been a rock slide, so there's only a bit of rocks you can get through. And in its defence, I tried it in the Mule T1, and it wasn't as happy about it. This actually quite convincingly made it up the rocks, and then I turned around and went back. This is the route I actually ended up driving with the Mule T1. Before I made the quarry video, there is, near the red containers where I were, there's a toy truck you can buy. But yeah, for the most part, driving up here, the Mule T1 was pretty slow, kind of jiggling the wheels. This isn't going to set any lap records or anything, but it did feel like it pretty consistently went through. Even that rock, it sort of beached on it, but it still had enough of its own grip to claw me over the rock, which I think is pretty good, because again, out of anything in this game, rocks seem to hold you up quite a lot if you actually get one under the vehicle. As far as driving up there, vertical, I mean, well, I know it wasn't vertical, but I mean getting closer to being vertical, it seems pretty good even if it's a particularly steep section of map. This is roughly where I weaved through with the Mule T1, and then like the rock thing I drove through is over there. That's kind of what slid over the road and blocked it for the most part. This is back into that same yard. On the left of those cargo containers, the red ones, is where the toy truck is. And then yeah, this is the ramp I drove up a minute ago that I rolled off the side of. Which again, that's part of the reason I came back, because it was my crappy steering. But the loaf just jumped over that little bit. This, again, a bit unlucky, but it did a wheelie, and then by the time I went forward a bit, it sort of weight of its nose carried it over, and yeah, I rolled again, didn't quite slip off the cliff, so I'm sort of stuck there at this point. My goddamn horse, thankfully, was nearby. I was liking my horse sat up here, though. He had a nice little podium going, eyeballing that bridge, keeping an eye on it. So it was already a bit like, ugh, gotta get me loaf down and go and rescue this thing. See, when I did winch points then with the loaf, though, it seemed to light up quite a lot of them, but at that point you can't scroll through them. It just fires the winch to whichever one it decided I was kind of nearest to. You can move the camera around, but the problem is you can't put the camera light in the ground, so it's hard to lift the winch point up to the highest part of the vehicle. But anyway, I rescued it, and then, see, this is one thing I love about the loaf. Just as I was looking around, I was like, I want to get the loaf up here, and then a little bit of wiggling and jiggling. But yeah, he's got some pretty good grip and some torque. It seems to have got like the Thomas the Tank Loaf bit at the back a bit wedged, but again, a bit of jiggling, and yeah, I mean the loaf, I mean it's not the biggest cliff in the world, I'll give it that, but he drove up there, so at this point I was like, yeah, DLC vehicles, conclusion, get yourself a loaf. It's a bit like SnowRunner, every video at some point or another turned into a loaf recommendation video, for good reason though. I do have a lot of footage of the loaf pulling off the impossible. Yeah, so I was back on my road while it was actually a little bit sunnier. I think this was like originally the plan was to get a bit of the thumbnail. Oh, I left this bit in to see how quick it gets dark. It went from like sunny as fuck to overcast in like 5 seconds. Got a crane down here, put the what do you call it, Invictus. I'll probably just keep calling it the Hummer. I believe that was the thumbnail bit as well. And then lastly, when I had it filled up with sand and I put the Hummer on top, I was just curious at this point. Just a bit of a messing around. Tipped the sand. It kind of did it properly, I suppose. The sand started tipping out. The Hummer happened to catch on like the rear gate of the dump truck thing. So it stayed in there, got it all lined back up. You do have the other option. When you enter, like, you press L1, you can press square or X to tip the tipper up and down, but it also brings up that, like, the right analog stick and that, and it's hard to tip it without accidentally rotating the cab and everything itself. So I decided to do a quick mission. I've cut most of this out because, again, the video would have got too long, but I have to deliver 10 steel beams, 8 logs and 4 concrete slabs. I was originally going to see if I can put everything into this dump truck, but in fairness, the logs were a bit awkward. I ended up putting 3 concrete slabs in, all 8 logs, and I probably could have stacked steel beams and whatnot, but I can't strap them down, that's the problem, so that's why I decided in the end. It's a mission over there, near the quarry. Yeah, I've just got to take all those materials. For what it's worth, there is the steel beams facility nearby, and I've got 9 steel beams worth of beams ready to be crafted there. But you're still going to have to take a crane, which is your options really at the minute is this thing. You've got that 5916 crane, but yeah, you're going to have to load everything into a cargo bed anyway. As you can see though, the Mule T1 is what I put 10 steel beams in and the 1 concrete slab on top. For what it's worth, while I was driving this around, I had all the stuff kind of loaded in it anyway. That was an accident tipping it. I was like, bloody hell, probably a good job I did rotate it around this way so that sort of the momentum didn't just make them slide out the back of the tipper. Yeah, it was fun kind of just dicking around as I'm driving along anyway. I was just kind of do a 360 with a cab whilst the actual tracks are going the direction you want them to. And it was a good little test. You can see most of the logs are kind of wedged in behind the dumper bucket gate thing at the back anyway. 2 or 3 of the logs that are kind of skidding around a little bit, but they never actually fell out while I drove all the way there, even though I was pushing my luck in various ways. The Mule T1 doesn't have a winch, so I was just seeing if you could crane to this thing and pull it, but it's probably got the handbrake on for a start, but nonetheless it was like, even if it hasn't, I just thought, nah, I just wanted to see, and it was not having much of it. You can see there just the difference between rain and daylight, how much difference it makes to the colours and all sorts. Like the vehicles are sort of yellow in the sun, whereas they look more orange in this weather. So I made it to the circle. One cool thing, well, a couple of cool things. I have to press right on the D-pad to confirm it, but it accepted both loads of cargo, even though the dump truck can't strap cargo.
Collecting all those resources. I'm sure they'll all be properly used in construction and not end up in a dump somewhere. Well,
and yeah, Kelly's back just to tell us the next mission. I've got to say again, I'd still quite like her. She's pessimistically sarcastic, which is kind of how I'd be. So yeah, it's all good stuff. Yeah, I think I cut the footage out, but I brought the dump truck up to here and I dumped the Hummer out the back. It just, I don't know, pretty kind of standard issue. The Hummer fell out the dump truck and that's about it. It went down into that sand quarry. So again though, driving up that steep hill, no issue. You can see my concrete slabs are still flying in the air at the minute. Climbed up one of these sand mountain dune things going on in the sand quarry, and the last couple of bits I kind of left in. Well, this was quite nice to see. It does actually climb, even though the sand is quite sinky. More sinky than sand you've laid down. One thing I did notice that I thought was quite cool, and I believe they're doing this on purpose. You see where the engine symbols came up? It's directly on my snorkel, and it's purposely like to the left. Now when I rotate the camera, it's to the right. I've not noticed it until this, but I believe that engine symbol comes up like literally where your air intake is. So it's probably worth something like keeping an eye out in future things. When it comes up, that's kind of trying to tell you where it is. And then the last couple of little tests, I was tempted to hit refill sand while I had all the trees in there, but I thought I won't because it might freak out or whatever. Ended up giving it a test there. It just refills the bucket, and any cargo or whatever you've got in there just seems to like get filled up and shoved out eventually because it's becoming full of sand. The next mission, I only just left these few bits in, but I've got to build a bridge across to the Eastern Tunnel or whatever it was called. In theory, a very easy mission, other than you physically got to go and build a bridge. It would be way easier to build a bridge. It cost about 4 concrete to cross it, but because I had this thing, I wanted to test it out. I was dumping sand. First thing, I could tell it was going to take quite a lot. Second thing, whilst I had the ghost of the bridge there that I was going to build, it just ate all my sand. It didn't appear to like add sand, it was just tipping through that blue ghosted bridge thing and took it. Yeah, long story short, skip ahead like another hour or so later, I dumped, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 piles of sand at this point. Just stubbornly, halfway through I was like, do I quit? Yeah, you can see now though, you see how because it's dumped the sand at like a peak in the middle and I'm trying to reverse along, I'm getting beached on like the point of all this pile of sand. And sometimes when you're trying to reverse, it breaks one side of the track to reverse the other side. So sometimes though, you're beached where it's like, I need the other track to be spinning, but if I change the direction of steering, I might steer even further off the peak, and it takes a little bit of getting used to that, but it's not the end of the world. I'm just throwing out there, it's maybe a tiny bit more ground clearance would be nice, but yeah, I've not quite built a road or anything across here. I sort of got, this is about the last footage I did before I thought, right, I need to seriously get on and make a video instead of fucking around all night. But yeah, pretty fun. I'm going to attempt to cover this. Oh, sorry, that was the last footage where it was sunny. This was the last dump I did that was, yeah, just cloudy. So yeah, I'll get that bridge built. Well, bridge. I'll lay enough sand, bring the dozer, flatten it out, build a road across. Completely not worth it time-wise, but again, that's what I like. I quite like this game. It's cool. You can sink that sort of time into it. But yeah, that's about it really. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Get yourself a loaf. and I'll be back soon.